We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. This is Cheryl from Dja country. Oh my goodness, what a way to start the podcast. Belinda Kitching, our special guest tonight. Matildas Cap number 98 is just kicked her puppy outside so she can have a chat to us. Or maybe not a puppy, Belinda. What kind of dog have you got sitting or hanging outside waiting?
I've got two four-legged companions, but the one crying at the moment is a Staffy Kelpie, not even 2 years old yet. And I've got another border collie out there, Archie, as well. He's 8.
Oh, very nice to meet both of the fur kids outside, but also super awesome and wonderful to have you join us on the podcast tonight. For anyone listening, my name is Cheryl Downs. My pronouns are she, her, and welcome to all of my B90 gang as well. We've got Magellan Card up in Queensland with some beautiful weather comparative to Melbourne. It's about 10 times as warm.
Oh yeah, there was a whole day of sunshine on Sunday, so I did the most exciting thing you could do and did some washing and washed all my doonas and got them dried in the sun. Exciting times.
Oh, Neil, can you top that?
I can top the doona washing. I can top the temperature though, but it's still freezing cold for Perth. It's 18 degrees and everybody's complaining like hell. So winter is well and truly here.
Dale, how about your weather and your week so far? It's only Monday, but tell us that you had a great weekend, hopefully.
I definitely had a great weekend. The weather is not so much of a concern. It's wet, but I mean, growing up in Canberra, it's not too cold for me. But I have heard that we're meant to get some snow in like far western Sydney this week. So a big shout out to whoever's going to be putting up with that weather out in Penrith.
Speaking of Western Sydney, and I don't keep tabs on where all the Beyond 90 crew hang out, but is that where Eric hangs out? And a shout out to Eric. He's not feeling well tonight and he's not on the podcast, which means that we have full control, even though he may be watching on the Facebook live stream. And he's probably sending some comments in there to say, no, we got something wrong, and or here's the picture that we should use for the article. Yeah. Also a shout out to Stefan, who is also unwell, one of our regulars on the podcast who normally covers all the Nordic football for us, but Stefan's unwell as well. I wish you both a speedy recovery. I've had my own couple of weeks where I've been off. I had the dreadful Rona, so apologies if I give a bit of a cough midstream, but I'm pretty well recovered by now. Let's talk about more important stuff than Rona and me coughing. Belinda Kitching, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Matildas Cap number 98, we're really thrilled to have you on board. And there's so much that I want to ask you, particularly in terms of not just the Matildas history that you had, but really around what you're doing now too. It just sounds so exciting. But for the people who are listening who don't have as much of a background about you, I've done a little bit of research. Apologies, I haven't necessarily done enough. But number one, you're a goalkeeper. So I don't know if that ticks the box for Dale. Seems to be one of our resident experts on goalkeepers, as well as friend of the pod, and sometimes joins us on the pod, Molly Appleton as well. So we're big goalkeeper fans here. Oh, 32 appearances for the Matildas. You debuted in 1996, and your last match for the Matildas, due to injury, I understand, a couple of dodgy ankles, was 1999. You played in the 1999 World Cup, which is superb, but you're also heavily involved in coaching at the moment. And when we post out the show notes, we'll just there was a really good article in there about you claiming the top job, but you've coached at Tweed Head Women's, United Warriors, Harvey Bay and Western Pride FC. So you've got a lot under your belt. And before we start throwing a bunch of questions at you, one of our very, very special friends of the pod, Sarah Groob, who was the ex-team manager of the Matildas back in that era. Groobs is someone that I love talking to about football all the time. But one of the special things that we do is we always ask her, hey, what do you remember about, player number or cap number, blah, blah. So this is what Groups has sent to me about yourself, Belinda, and I hope it's hopefully it's warmly received. She says, Belinda Kitching is a champion human, a gifted goalkeeper who traded caps with Queensland compatriot Claire Nichols after long-term number one Tracy Wheeler did her ACL. Belinda was great with the ball at her feet or in the air, trained very professionally. And she said, we're getting to the era of the academies and institutes of sports now. So prior to that, it was more, everyone did their very best, but they didn't have that background support. So she really highlighted that you were as professional as they could come. So you were getting great support regarding physical and mental preparation and nutrition, but you were someone who brought that professionalism really before a lot of it was within the game in terms of, the whole kit that came out. So you were professional before it was a paid professionalism sort of era, and she's really pleased to see that you're a coach now. So thanks very much, Groobs, for sharing that. And Belinda, thank you again very much for joining us on the show. Do you want to have a chat to us a little bit about what's your favourite memory of being a Matilda? We'll start off with a nice, easy question for you. They're all easy, but we'll start off with that one.
Oh, geez, I think just being able to play for the Matildas was probably the most exciting part for me, and the most nerve-wracking part too. But it was absolute honour. You know what I mean? I've got a bit of a history with football in my family, but just to be able to say to myself, come on, give it a go and let's see how far it goes. And when my name got called out after one of the last national championships we had, that I was a third goalkeeper, my sister fell off the seat, and I'm laughing at her, but I'm also shocked because I became, one of those members of the Matildas, and it's a great feeling. Sort of thing.
I was going to ask you, actually, do you remember the moment that you were told that you were going to be a Matilda for the first time, and can you describe it? I mean, you've described your poor sister who fell off the chair, and hopefully you eventually helped her up. But yeah, how did she got up?
It was a presentation night, the good old national titles days that we used to have, where the Australian select team got called out, and I was there through the under-16 national titles all the way through to the open ladies sort of thing, and it was an awesome night. It was just, and when my name got called out, it was under my idols, basically, Tracy Wheeler and Claire Nichols was the other one being called out, and I was just like, oh no, this is awesome. And I'm sitting around the table with Louise at Murtry, Sonia, all those other awesome players, and they're just looking at me saying, good on you, B. I was going, oh, okay, thank you. And I was just shell shock, really.
And the other question I was probably going to ask you is, you played as a goalkeeper, which to my mind is one of the hardest positions that you can break into. And I don't know if everyone else believes that, but that's kind of what I think. Predominantly because, there's as many opportunities for a goalkeeper sometimes as other players, but you seem to get a number one, and that number one just sticks there for a pretty long period of time. And maybe not in the context of Australian football, but when we think about someone like Hope Solo, it was probably to the detriment to the rest of the US team that they weren't able to rotate their goalkeepers enough. But can you discuss the competitiveness around trying to get the position versus the team camaraderie that you need to have as well to have a really good gelling system?
I think first and foremost, the way I became number one was upsetting first, because hearing that Wheels did a knee sort of thing, like I couldn't believe it at first. But I think once I achieved that number one, I just said to myself, well, at the end of the day, if you put the effort in and you're disciplined in all those areas sort of thing, then regardless of what's happened, which is sad, but this is an opportunity. And so I just chose as a person that, well, I have worked hard. I'm working full time at this point in time in my career in 93. I was, 7 to 4 every day working plus training 5 days a week and going to football on the weekends. And I just said to myself, look, take it. Dad was sitting there when he got the phone call as well, and he goes, this is your opportunity, honey, grab it with 2 hands and just fight for it. He goes, that's what becoming a professional player is all about. And I said, rightio, okay, I'll give it a go. And it was awesome. So
did this come in the year where you won the Queensland Player of the Year or Player of the Season? Was that all around the same time?
Around the same time. I think 94 I got the Player of the Year for Queensland, but I think 93 was, maybe it was 94. Geez, sorry, it was a long time ago. It might have been 94, actually. I think you're correct, yeah. Because I was the third keeper in 93 when I got selected, yes. It's all coming back to me now. And then, I think that was the time when halfway through 94, I think that's when Wheels poor Dolan hurt a knee. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I might jump in here, Cheryl. I remember when I first started on the pod, you asked me what my earliest memory of the Matildas was. And I went back to one of the early World Cups, but when Belinda was coming on, I actually realised you grew up in Ipswich.
Yep.
I grew up near Ipswich, near Boonah. So we always got the Queensland Times.
Yeah.
And my memory was just triggered. You were on the back page at least 1 or 2 times,
Yes.
giving you some big ups. So it must have been around that same era, I'd say, probably as you were winning.
Yes, David
those
Lemsey
awards.
was the editor there. Lemsey, he's still going to this day. When I was at Western Pride, he still loves it, still goes to sporting events, and credit to him for, you know, out at Ipswich, there's so many awesome sporting personalities that have come out of there sort of thing, but they get well looked after as a community, and that's the other big credit to, you know, where you come from. Is it's awesome to have that feeling of, you know, we acknowledge what you've done. And yeah, it was awesome to have that feeling, knowing that people knew who you were, or, oh yeah, I remember reading that story. It's always a memory in somebody's mind sort of thing. So yeah.
What do you think is the biggest transition that you can see from sort of your days as a player to now, and the media coverage, and what that does for aspiring young players?
Oh, I just think because the media coverage has, and social media, the platforming is just crazy these days, crazy good sort of thing. You can either get caught up in another world, or if you are that focused sort of thing, you can get caught up into the right areas of the social media. And for a lot of young players, that they're a learner because they listen and they acknowledge what's being spoken to and what's been shown. It's a great platform for them to have there too. But they're playing a lot longer and a lot better competitions these days. So the young kids get a chance to experience what's it like for these experienced players, not just Matildas, but even the ones that are fringe Matildas. They're getting a chance to play in some of the best, you know, countries in the world, you know, and the best leagues in the world. And these young kids are just going, oh, this is so cool. I want to do that one day, you know. And I've heard it out of the young kids' mouths, just talking to them in the community. So it's been great.
Bit more reach than just the back page of the QT, but
basically
still
that's all digital these days. It's not even been handed out, so it is.
Still absolutely did its job in the day, though.
Yeah, it did. It was fabulous, you know. Like so, and that's, I remember the Northern Star when Bridget Starr and Shelley and Tracy and that. I remember the Northern Star really being a really good paper. It was a sister paper to the Queensland Times, so the acknowledgement back then was always there. But to this day, it's just 24/7 now, because it's. Look what we're doing now. We're having a chinwag over the internet. It's fabulous, isn't it? So,
it's great to talk women's football. One of the things for my mind is that, yes, we've got more digital coverage of the game, and you've got more vision that scouts can watch to see who should be called up into squads and that kind of thing. I don't profess to know about Australia's entire geography, and I'm not sure around Ipswich, but was it hard to get noticed there? And I know that maybe you were fortunate, maybe you weren't, but you alluded to it before, you've got a bit of family history in football as well. And I think it was your grandfather, am I correct that it was your grandfather who was a Socceroo? I don't know if, you know, he just helped you get into that space, or you just, you know, sometimes we hear it's a brother or someone else who helps them get into the game. But did it help you get into the game? Did it give you any understanding of how to be seen and how to be recognised, and what kind of qualities you needed to be acknowledged to be maybe a candidate for the Matildas?
Oh, look, there was a number of factors there, like having my grandfather as a former Socceroo and my family in general, just the name Kitching in Ipswich, they were all club people. They were all very associated within the clubs, and they all made state teams, or they all represented different moments in time. And so we were just there 24/7. So going to a football field or down at Coal Stars, which is now Ipswich Knights, it was just the second nature to us sort of thing. But for me, as a young player, we had a junior girls starting base happening with Michelle Sawyer's father, Keithy Barclay. It was, you know, Michelle Sawyers is still, she's a close friend now, but she is still one of the biggest idols for myself, Bryony, and for all the players that came out of Ipswich. She's still one of the biggest idols we've ever had to look up upon. And her father, credit to him, he was one that started it. So we were 6 years old training, and we had one of the first ever girls teams coming out of Coal Stars, you know, and we were just kicking the ball around and having a blast. So the opportunity created from such a young age. So having that from a club perspective is also awesome in my mind, because we're all family. We all class each other as family to this day. So
Oh, that's good. Neil, throwing over to you at the moment, because I know you've been heavily involved in the Redbacks over in WA and just the focus on women's football and women's sport. Maybe you want to ask a question or two of your own for Belinda as well. And Belinda, I'm sorry if I'm saying Belinda and it sounds like, you're in trouble. Some people have a nickname. They'll have a nickname and they'll swear by it. And if anyone calls
I've got a nickname in every facet of my life. It's Lindy for my family. It was B for the Australian team. Now the last 20 years while I've been coaching, it's Kitch. So be my guess what you want to call me. Belinda is fine.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Neil.
Yeah, look, it's great to talk. We've obviously had a number of players coming out of the West going on to represent the Matildas. But for us in WA, the tyranny of distance has always been a big issue for us, and the internet is certainly helping with that now. But what we're starting to see is players moving over to the eastern states to maybe get a little bit more visibility. But having said that, for us, one of the biggest issues that we seem to have covered, I don't know why it is, and perhaps you could throw some light on this. Why does WA produce so many goalkeepers? We've got a number in the Young Matildas set up now as well.
That's good, yeah.
And we got Lydia as well.
Yep.
And it seems that there's some, I don't know what it is, what's in the water. What for you makes, I mean, people always say goalkeepers are mad, and that's a given because they are. That's
what I was going to say. We're all crazy.
Yeah, that's right. So, what are the attributes of the goalkeeper? I can't say that it's a geographical thing here in the West, but to sort of nail down what a goalkeeper needs, because whilst we are producing a lot, we're still short. There's a number of teams that are really struggling for keepers, and it is such a specialist position.
It is. I just think, for one thing, you just need to be very persistent because it is just a position that can be changing and evolving any given game or any given era sort of thing. But you just got to have that will to survive in that position. And that's the hardest part too. Like, yes, we're mad. People go, why would you do it? It is the hardest position on the field, which has been known for many years now, but that's why it's drawn to specific people too, I suppose. And it's not a well-known, a lot of people I talk to, do you want to have a go? And I said, no. I remember Julie Murray and that were watching me from a distance when we were at the Institute prior to the World Cup, and they said, geez, you lot like to dive around a bit. And I said, do you want to give it a go? She said, oh, hell no, I choose running over this sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like little funny conversations that you bring up, but we are a position and we are a breed that, we'll just give our all. And then you're from behind, you see everything, and you're not quiet if you're a goalkeeper either. So I've taken what I've learned from being a goalkeeper, and I'm as a coach now for 20 years, I still don't shut up on the sidelines. Even though in many courses of coaching that I've done over the years, can you let them think? I said, well, they're still thinking, but I'm a goalkeeper. I direct. I like to be dictative on that pitch sort of thing. So I guess we're just a special breed. And you can probably ask Wheels the same question and Lydia. You hear Lydia every time the girls might make a bad touch or, miss an opportunity. She's in their faces and you're telling them what for sort of thing. So we're a different breed. I know that much, but I love it. I do miss it, but my body's saying to me, I'm glad you're not doing it anymore, basically now too. So
I feel like goalkeeper is a brilliant position in a way, because you can see the game unfolding in front of you, as opposed to, some of the other players who are, if I was playing football, I'd be running around headless and not necessarily have the visibility or vision of what's happening. So in that goalkeeper position, then you would be if you're a great communicator, which we've seen, someone like Lydia Williams is really that great talker, and she can see and say, hey, do this, hey, do that. I don't know, some people maybe find it annoying. Anyway, Dale, you've probably got a question rather than me rattling on.
Yeah, well, always welcome to rattle on, Shez. That's half the reason we're here. So you mentioned, Linda, you mentioned that, like, obviously growing up in Ipswich and coming through the system through Queensland and then onto the Matildas.
Yep.
Was there somewhat of kind of a culture shock when you eventually went to the World Cup and started playing in front of these crowds that really, in a Western, because obviously there were obviously the World Cup was in China prior to that, but in Western terms, like, was unheard of. Was that kind of, how did that feel going from kind of, for want of a word, humble beginnings where there wasn't a hell of a lot of, I I guess, media attention, mainstream media attention. How did that feel to be, I guess, the star in a way, in the sense that you're playing in front of all of these people?
It was overwhelming at the start. I think you need to, anyone to be that doesn't answer that question the same as, it's probably not human, but you're going into a country that it is soccer mad over there for women's football. And it always has been, sort of thing. And it's never going to change. And it's just, we got over there and I was scared of the attention. I was unsure of, reading articles and stuff like that, because we never got trained. We did have some training on that sort of stuff, but you get over there. Excuse me, talking. Sorry, that's my dog again. He's getting louder. But it was just, I loved it. I love the experience, just listening to what people had to say and how passionate they are for the sport over there. Like it was a wonderful experience, actually.
And you went to, obviously played in the World Cup, and that third group game against China ended up playing against, and not to put too fine a point on it, but conceding to Sun Wen. Is that kind of experience of being able to say, I've played against, I think inarguably the best player in the world at that point. Is that something where you can kind of take that further in life and be like, I kind of held my own against the best player in the world. It gives you confidence to, as you say, be a coach, or whatever it is. Is that something you still keep with you now?
I do. I think you need to, because like every opposing nation that we had a chance to play against, like I don't remember the player's name, but Ghana had that brilliant striker. You know what I mean? That was one that Wheels played against in the first game. But when we used to have the US national team come out here and play against us back in the night, I had Mia Hamm running one-on-ones against me. Man, holy crap, that's awesome. Because she was, to us, even though we've got the badge on and that was us representing our nation, we've got these awesome players like Julie Foudy coming through in the midfield sort of thing. It was really, really good to have that experience. And I still speak about it today when the girls I'm actually coaching men's at the moment, they're actually starting to ask me questions about it. And it's really, really good to be able to answer it. Whether they get that experience themselves, but at least they're asking questions.
Yeah, something that, as you say, something you can pass on. It guides your teaching as a coach, I guess.
Let's talk a little bit about your coaching journey. And what I would start with is say that we're still in a world where women coaches or of women's or men's teams is not the norm. So, but you've broken through those barriers. Talk about the barriers that you've faced maybe, and talk about who's potentially helped you and coached you along that journey to be in the space where you're in at the moment. And you're leading the way. I mean, we talk about some of the other coaches that have been out there and they're getting some visibility now of what they're doing, but you've been doing it probably for quite a lot longer than some of them. So if you can talk us. Yeah.
My coaching journey is it's taken me on a wonderful ride in my eyes, regardless of how high I've achieved in coaching perspective. But, my partner, Sarah, got a job. I met her down here at Tweed when I first left the Australian team. And that 6-7 years at Tweed was awesome. It was a wonderful experience. It was a very family club as well. So I felt like what I was leaving in Ipswich was coming down to a very similar situation, and able to build clubs for a female perspective. Like we had one team down there. I created nearly 3 senior ladies teams down there sort of thing by the time we left that region. And the comp on the Gold Coast was growing as we were there. So it was a really good feeling to be in amongst that. And then when my journey went to Harvey Bay, that's where my partner Sarah got posted for her teaching degree. United Warriors was only 4 years old or something at that point of time when we got there. And I transferred up through Aldi. I was a store manager at the time, but I decided, no, I still want to coach. I think there's an opportunity in this region because it's a regional area, gets missed out. It's right and smack bang in the middle of major areas sort of thing. And again, at that club and in that area, by the time Sarah and I had left to I made my way down to Western Pride, I had the opportunity to grow the women's game. Not because of just I played for the Matildas and my experiences, but I developed a sense in the region that everybody can give it a go. Everyone can have fun. And by the end of it, we had 3 senior teams again at the club. We got a junior girls team back in the club, and every other club was actually now from Maryborough to Harvey Bay. Same thing. They decided to fight for the one thing. It's just getting girls in the game and just driving that message. And it's been awesome. That journey has been awesome. And then when I got to Western Pride, I had to do the same thing. Yes, it was an NPL club, but when I spoke to Pat Boyle, he just said to me, but it's still the numbers in the region were struggling. And there was a massive gap. So And it was even though it was a hard 3 years there, but it was so rewarding to see that by the end of my tenure there, I had retaining squads with full numbers. So that for me being a coach and delivering just the history that I've learned and what I've engaged as a person myself, I'm giving it to a lot of people around the state at this point in time, and it's fabulous. That's good. So
sounds like a brilliant journey. I'm excited to hear about it, and I'm really grateful that you're doing it. Although maybe come down to Victoria as well, we have some of those problems. We've got great weather. It's always beautiful every day.
I've been there. I can question that.
Oh, I don't, I'm sure it's a bit chilly today, but all is fine. Throw off to anyone else to see if you've got some more questions. I've got plenty, but I want to share.
Well, I was just going to go on from what you were saying, that it really sounds like you love developing teams. Yes. and developing programs. And so you've just been appointed to the Nerang Eagles, I believe, as the men's Premier League coach, who they've been through a rough patch. So you come into that team sort of an interim sort of halfway through the season. And so what is that what attracted you to go for a role like that, the ability to help turn a team around?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've had a couple of years off actually coaching. Sometimes in your body and your mind, it just says, oh, come on, enough's enough. And so when I left Western Pride, my partner and I, we decided to travel. So when we come back from traveling and we moved here to the Gold Coast, I just saw the ad on Facebook, and I've known a lot of people at Nerang for many years myself, since playing against them at Tweed when I first left the Matildas, you know what I mean? And so Fred Stone was the president. I saw the ad, and he basically said, if you're prepared to develop young players and rebuild the men's senior program? And I'm going, young, developing program was just the three key things for me, sort of thing. Like, fair enough, I've been mainly females in my 20 years, but I did coach a men's team in United Warriors and Harvey Bay, and the only joy I got out of it wasn't just to see them grow and make the semi-finals, but the joy I got out of it was that they listened, and they were actually taking in how I was trying to design sessions and get them to understand and create better footballing decisions. And that's what I take out of it. There's players coming back to me saying, oh my God, Kitch, thank you. I've now turning 38 years old, and that's the most I've learned in one session than I have my whole playing career. I'm not going, holy crap. Wow, thank you. But to me, that's what it's about. And when I've taken this job on, I've been there 2 weeks now. We've had our first game on the weekend. The results still aren't there, but the attitude's already changed. So they're already recognising me as a coach with knowledge, but they already recognise me as someone that loves what she does, not because of where I've been. That's a big part of it, but I'm in there for the right reasons for the players, and I'm already generated that. And the fight they showed was just unbelievable. I was on the side. I don't care if it was 8-0 or 10 or 20-0. These boys showed that they could hold a shape for me, and they delivered it for 90 minutes, even though they're absolutely buggered by the end, because we're down to 10 players because we're low on numbers. But they're excuses, but that's a reality at the moment, and that's what I'm prepared to change and fix up for the club and get it back to its glory days. Because Nerang's 50 years old as well this year. They're celebrating a milestone. That's huge for a club on the Gold Coast. And that's not the reason why I got the job to be the first female coach. I got it because of those three key words. So it's exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Congratulations to Nerang. Yeah.
So Fred's great. I've known Fred for 20 years. His family's been there since day dot, the Stones family sort of thing. And Philippa's the secretary at the moment. So she's going to help me out this year and be my manager. And it's welcoming that the boys have engaged who I am. They're prepared to listen. So I'm looking forward to it. So.
It's so incredibly visible that you have a passion for football and a passion just for developing the game. So that's amazing. Just a little question on the side as well. And we don't normally talk about people's partners, but given that your partner, you said that she's a teacher.
Yes.
Has that teaching element come into some of the coaching that you do as well? Do you talk about football after the game, or is it after the game it's like, I don't want to talk about it?
Oh, no. We never shut up. And she calls me the female Gus Gould, if that makes sense. When I'm watching sports, it doesn't matter what code it is, she just listens and is in awe how I can learn and analyze games and stuff like that. But over the 20 years, we've been together 20 years, so we've been together a long time. She's developed a platform with her teaching around what I've taught her through coaching, but I've also learned laying things out and planning and being really decisive with things too through what she's learned being a teacher. So we've kind of linked really well with that sort of facet. And so Sarah's now becoming she's very heavily involved in school sports now. She's secretary of Queensland School Sport, done it for over 10 years. She was the manager for the Australian School Sports, and she took the Hayley Rassos, took all those girls away to England that year. So what she's learnt and evolved, we're working together, and it's really fun.
Sounds
to have
brilliant.
that as a relationship. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yep. My wife tells me not to talk about football these days, but I'll give her a couple of years off maybe, and then I still talk about it, but that's why I've got the podcast so I can talk to other people. Anyone else got some more questions? Otherwise, I'll keep going.
I've just got the one you touched on there, taking players away overseas, and I think we've touched on it, but the opportunities that are now available for players across the board, is that something that, when you look back to where you've come from and how you went through your football journey as a player, is that something you feel a twinge of regret? I know talking to some of the older players, think, oh, I wish I'd been and I wish this had, but really, none of this would have happened without the trailblazers such as yourselves pushing those boundaries. But is there a bit of you that thinks, oh, if only I was 21,
I did. We did the tour of Europe in 97, and we did the 7 countries in 4 weeks, and it was a fabulous experience. And there was scouts over there apparently, and I never took much notice of all that sort of stuff. I was just in the moment of, oh my God, I'm in another country. Oh my God, I'm not even 20 yet. You know what I mean? I was just getting through all that and getting an opportunity to play against some awesome countries in the world. And apparently Hawaii were over there. Then they were looking at people, scouting people to come to the University of Hawaii. So I was talking to Bryony, my best mate, and I said to her, I can't even think about these things. She goes, why, Belinda? You'd be great. I said, I haven't completed school. I made the decision because the era we came through, I left school because mum and dad had money, but they couldn't afford everything. Do you know what I mean? So I left school and worked at Woolworths full time just to help me fund my next trips. But I said to her, so I chose to leave grade 11, never looked back at going to school. I wasn't failing, but I wasn't passing. But because my passion was somewhere else, I thought, well, I need to help mum and dad out here. I need to get a job. So I said to Bronny, I never get an opportunity like a lot of those actually girls. Some of them did. They got to America and they got a chance of the American system in the university, which is amazing experience. So I did miss it. I did feel for that, Neil. I did, maybe I should have given it a go. But I felt that because I wasn't, didn't complete my education, I thought, there's no point in giving it a go. So I never actually got my feelers out or found somebody to help me do that sort of stuff. So I just kept on working and training and playing for my country. That's all I kept on doing. So, yeah.
I think it highlights that there are many pathways to get to, the same destinations or the journey is the successful bit. Sorry, Neil, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say exactly the same thing. People take their own pathways, and it is what it is. And I just think
100%.
But what it is now for those players, because of the hard work that players such as yourselves put in at the beginning, is that the opportunities are now there. And for the women's game and the growth and the potential that it has, I think it's just an amazing thing. Neil,
just beyond that too, it's a pathway for these kids because not everyone can stay in the country, even though there is it's a good league. It needs to expand. I do believe that sort of thing, but pathways and opportunities can happen somewhere else. Doesn't mean you're not going to be recognised. We've got quality international coaches and quality Australian coaches finally getting the experience coming through as in our national teams. Let them explore different areas too, because if it's a league that's equivalent to our NPL ladies seniors, but it's in a junior or even a youth league somewhere else, they're going to get the knowledge, they're going to get the experience, and so that the pathways are crucial. And there's so much development happening within the academies in every state, but the growth of the women's game that pathway needs to be eligible to all. Still is my belief. It's just to make a point on that, Neil. I think it's important that still continues as well. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's a two-way street as well. We're actually seeing, even just in the last 2 weeks here in Western Australia, we've seen a young girl coming over, or a young lady coming over from Indonesia to try and further her playing career by coming to Australia.
She was in the Glory team this year, was she?
No, she's just on the fringes of the NPL at the moment. So
okay, good.
She wants to push on into the Indonesian national team.
Good.
And so she's decided to come to Australia and give it a crack. So it does work both ways, but you're absolutely right. The moves away into overseas and other areas, even within Australia, we touched on the players are going over east now.
Yeah.
There's just so many more opportunities for them, and fair play to them.
And that rebuilds our league, where we don't want to lose too many, but it creates more opportunity. And if the academies are really driving, which they all seem to be trying to do the best they can within the states, but if there's opportunity, the coaches see more broader opportunity and they've got more options to choose from, then awesome, go for it, I say. So
I'm conscious of stealing too much of your time because I know that you have to get away, but I've got a couple of other questions.
No, you're okay.
I'm not sure if you've got another question as well. But talking on a bit of a different topic at the moment as well, do you have a lot of visibility of the current young and junior Matildas, and how do you think they're tracking it? And from a development perspective, do you have any thoughts around what they're doing well at, what they need a bit more focus on, and that might be international games or whatever? I've not given you $1 million to do it, but I'm just keen on your thoughts.
I think the pathways at the moment seem to be going okay, but I think it's game management that's crucial. These girls are getting quality training by some quality coaches. I do understand that too, but I think it's just like you're saying, getting games at the higher level. So I know I was at the QAS 2 years ago before I decided to have a break with Gabor and the girls program there. I was in the under 15 girls. And what I noticed was a lot of them are there 100% of the time, but to be able to get them at match fitness was a struggle because they're still at school. So they've still got a lot of things happening at school as well. And what we were providing at the QS was fabulous. It made them feel like they were a full-time player already. I know it was still costing them money, but they got what the understanding needs to be to get to the next level. So they were creating a vibe where this is what it's like. You're now 4 nights a week, game day on the weekend. But the NPL, most clubs are now 3 nights, game day on the weekend. But these girls that are playing for probably the under 20, the youth and up, the young Matildas and up, they're probably training 5 days a week, sometimes morning and night. And there is still, and that understanding, to get those players to understand that difference, that's where I still find there's a challenge. Yeah, it's hard to say to a player, please give up your 2 other sports that you love doing, because they need to embrace everything. You can't just, but in other codes in different parts of the world, they're all football. That's all they want is football. But here in Australia, because there's so many opportunities, and it's a reality. I'm not saying what everyone's doing is wrong. The reality is you've got kids that are choosing multi-sport still because they want pathways, they want opportunities, but they've got the talent to be a Matilda, 100%. But the understanding what the pathway needs to look like, it's hard to achieve that at the moment, is what I'm noticing. Are they growing? Yes. Are the young squads looking better in the Matildas? Yes, they are. I do believe the girls are getting that understanding, but is there a long road ahead still? 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Good thoughts. 2 more questions from me, and then any others from anyone else. But what does the 2023 Women's World Cup mean to you, and will you be there with bells on?
100%. To answer that second question, and fabulous, so exciting. I think we've earned it as a nation. I think we fought our way through to go to every World Cup, you know what I mean? And then the improvements are still there, even if there is a bit of a plateau with our performances at the moment. But I think the deservingness of a World Cup, 100%. Is Australia one of the best sporting nations to come to as a team? They're all licking their lips over there in the world, I reckon. They're all fighting so they get a chance to come to this great country. That's what I reckon. And I can't wait just to be a part of that, because it's fabulous. The stadiums I still believe they're some of the best stadiums you can go to. I mean, I know I'm not classing it like Manchester United. I know that's another world again, but Suncorp Stadium, fabulous. You know what I mean? When you got down in Melbourne there,
Lane Park is literally like the best rectangular stadium in Australia. So definitely do not have a problem with that.
Is it?
I was up there the other week. Oh yeah.
I haven't been there. I don't know. I mean, I love
it. Really is, Cheryl. It really is.
Excellent food choices there.
Yes. Cactus Street, like 5, not even a 5-minute walk.
It's going to be, I was going to say.
It's going to be a party.
Brisbane is going to be one of the places to be for the Women's World Cup. So very jealous that you guys will get to go to those games.
Good to hear. All right, my final question, and then throw open to the gang, and you can ask us questions as well, Kitch, if you want. But just the last question is actually not about you. It's about cap number 99, Amy Duggan. And if you have any thoughts that you can share about her, I think, is she Queensland-based as well? Or have I made that up?
She could be now. I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to remember the last post I read on Facebook, because I do follow her. She might have. I don't know. I can't remember. Because she was.
It's not unknown for me to make stuff up. So, And we can ask her next week. Hopefully she's coming.
All I know is that, she's doing so well at the moment. Like what she's achieving through the television era, like good on her. You know, she's very professional in what she does. And as a player, whenever I was a goalkeeper, whenever I had the field, I was so glad that the defenders that I had in front of us were just a bunch of, excuse my French here, but a bunch of hard asses. They didn't care who was in front. Sorry about, I don't know if they're language or anything, but, you know, you had Bridget Starr.
Don't care about language.
You had Tracy Bartlett, you had Anissa Tandarby, you know, you had players that if they made a mistake, they just fought. And Amy was part of that. You know what I mean? Anyone that you're a human being, so you make mistakes, and we all looked at each other, don't worry, we got your back, don't worry. You know, and Amy was that type of player as well. So very dedicated in what she did as well. And look at it, it's continued on with her career now too, hasn't it? So
well, talking about her career, but your career has been amazing as well. And just like I said before, how much passion you're still throwing at us. You can just hear it, feel it. And I love that about football, that you can get a bunch of people together and you can talk about it just literally non-stop. Any final thoughts from the gang before we let Kitchen and the puppies go off and do their own thing?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm so sorry about that.
No, I actually like
Here we go. He's going nuts.
they're telling us the things on the side. They're like, oh, mum didn't do this and mum didn't do that. All righty. It sounds like we are finished with the questions. Thank you so much, Kitch, for joining us on the podcast.
No dramas. Thank you so much.
It's been a real treat.
Great chatting with you.
Thanks, Belinda.
Love to have you back
Thanks,
on
Kitch.
some other time as well. You can tell us about Nerang.
Neil, I love WA. I was there last year. I love the place.
Oh, anytime. Yeah.
It's a
We'll have a
beautiful
beer.
spot, WA. I could be stuck there again tomorrow. Don't you worry.
We'll
Thanks,
show
guys.
you a
Have a
bit.
great night.
All right.
Cheers.
We'll wave goodbye
Bye.
to Kitch and then we will keep on going with the podcast. Oh, that was fun for me. Hopefully it was fun for the co-hosts here with me, but also for the people who are listening or watching it as well. It's great to see the real characters of football who have taken us to where it is today, and I thoroughly appreciated that. Let's talk about the week in football, and as always, it has been a big week in football. The Dolan Warren Awards were announced on, was it Tuesday night, Friday night? I have forgotten. I'm very sorry. Madge, you had some stats that maybe we're going to throw to you and get you to talk us through, and maybe you want to talk through the actual recipients of the awards. And look at that, there's quite a few from Melbourne, but Adelaide seems to be the big winner.
Yeah, so we'll start with, I'm just going to go in the order of what's here in the notes, but Young Footballer of the Year, unsurprisingly, Holly McNamara. She had a fantastic season for Melbourne City. The Golden Boot was, of course, Fiona Wirtz, thanks largely to, or not largely, but in large part to that game against Brisbane, sort of helped kick a few of them along. But well done, Fiona. Goal of the Year was Rachel Lowe. Am I remembering that was the free kick?
I think it was the goal against Newcastle when she scored from way downtown.
Oh, yes.
If I recall correctly.
Yep. Goalkeeper of the Year, unsurprisingly, Casey Dumont. I'm not sure what the voting was on goalkeeper. I'm sure Melissa Barbieri may have been up there as well, but yeah, very well deserved for Casey there. Coach of the Year, Adrienne Stenter. So I know the Melbourne Victory fans might be arguing a little bit that Jeff should have been there, but I think Adrienne done a fantastic
Melbourne Victory
job.
fans would always be arguing, let's face it, and I would be one of them.
But I mean, Adrian's done a fantastic job building that team. I guess it's almost like a multi-year award there. I think it's a recognition of the team that he was able to build and sort of take to the finals for the first time this season. So really just reward there. The big gong for the night, the Julie Dolan medalist, went to Fiona Wirtz from Adelaide. So really a fantastic season, leading goal scorer, and really dominating in that sort of second half of the season as well. She was only 1 point ahead of the Brisbane Roar's Katrina Gorry. And then
how many games did Minnie play? Did Minnie play the whole season?
She only missed the first.
Yeah.
No, she didn't miss any games. She did end up flying. She wasn't going to play the first Perth game, but she did. So she came on as a sub in the first game. So she did play all games. So that's and was an absolute standout for Brisbane. So yeah, no surprise there. And and often, I guess, being a dominant player in the Brisbane Roar team when she was on the park. And then tied for third was Holly McNamara and Mackenzie Hawkesby. So it would have been really, I mean, Holly, of course, missed quite a few games there at the end of the season with her ACL. So if she hadn't had that unfortunate injury, she may well have been up there vying for the top award. But congrats, everyone. And then I think also then the referee awards was Lara Lee. So there's a Queenslander. So we picked up referee of the year. But I guess I don't think there's too many controversies in the winners, but
no.
What's a bit perplexing is why the awards weren't broadcast.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, even if it was just available to stream on Paramount, because obviously when Fox had the what became the APL rights, it was the Dolan Warren was at least broadcast on one of the channels, or there was an opportunity to watch it. But again, as you say, I think it's just that Paramount probably didn't see it as a necessity, and Channel 10 wouldn't have given up one of their very valuable multiple channels for it. If we recall that one of the semi-finals wasn't broadcast as well. But I think it's a perplexing thing. Maybe something to work on next year. It's first year of the deal, so hopefully that'll be something that they fix next year.
I think it'd be lovely to see it because you'd see the players in a different context. And I think that's important for us to see them as humans as well. I don't know what people think about that, but it's not just about what goes on the field. It's about the recognition for them afterwards. Maybe it is a bit of a players event or a inside event more than anything else. But I mean, you look at other codes and the awards nights are some of the biggest nights out there and a real red carpet event. So it was probably a missed opportunity, but we just talk about football gets better every year, and then hopefully next year or next season it's something that they consider. And certainly from the feedback that they've received this time around, maybe they would think about it.
I completely agree with your point around humanizing the players as well, because there's one thing that you notice about players who from other codes specifically, whether it's the Brownlow or the Dally M in NRL, it is one of those nights where the partners get to dress up, and for us it'll be the women's players that get to dress up, and there's that chat around fashion, and it's all as I said, a little bit more humanizing, which I think is good because it leads to it also kind of gives football another opportunity to show off, which is good. And maybe it also gives us an opportunity to look back in like 10 years and look at all of the awful suits that the men wore. If you've looked at any previous Dally M from like the mid 2000s where they have very large oversized suits, or any Brownlows, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, it's another opportunity for a night out, which I think that football doesn't really give itself enough opportunities to have, unfortunately.
Very good points. A couple more awards came out at the same time. So the PFA awards the Women's Footballer of the Year. I'm not sure if anyone is surprised by this. Sam Kerr. PFA Young Women's Footballer of the Year, Mary Fowler. And I think for Mary Fowler, I mean, for me, she's one of the most enigmatic players that we have. She's really gone overseas and done the hard yards without, I mean, there's a lot of fanfare about some other players and going off to maybe some really visible places, but she just goes off and does her craft. And I really look forward to seeing her evolve more and more and be involved more and more. So that was good to see as well. Young Matildas Camp has been announced for May-June cusp as well. So they must be in and around doing that at the moment. I've put a couple of stats in our show notes, which I might pull out afterwards, but anyway, just to have a look at where the players are coming from, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they've directly come from there, because I think, Neil, you're back online as well. We talk about a lot of the not a lot, but there are instances of players leaving the West Coast and coming to the East Coast and I don't know if that's to really sit in that environment with potentially their teammates for a future Matildas sort of situation as well. Your thoughts on that, Neil, or anyone?
Yeah, it's a strange one, because I wasn't aware of this, but apparently Blacktown Spartans, that's the club that the future Matildas go to. So that's no surprise then that Hannah Lowry is there, because she was in the Future Matildas setup. Heidelberg United, I believe that would be Isabella Wallhead. The other Blacktown Spartan player is Letitia McKenna. Letitia went over there last season after her successful stint with Brisbane Roar, and she didn't come back to WA. But you're right, more and more players are going over east. We touched on this earlier in the pod about technology allowing selectors to look, and the disappointing thing from a West Australian point of view is that there seems to be little interest now in the NPLW over here, because so many players have left. Whether it's got a stigma now of being a second-rate competition or not, I'm not sure. But we still have A-League W players in the competition. And we do have young players who have not been part of the NTC, but are very much on the radar for Perth Glory, and indeed have played for Perth Glory. And it does seem strange that these sort of fringe players are not being pulled into these camps. Because some of the names that you see, like Letitia, Isabella Wallhead is a fine young player. She didn't play a minute of A-League football for one reason or another with Glory. So it can't be that the players are being selected on the basis of their form in the W League or the A-League W. So what are the criteria? What are you bringing these players in from? And if you are looking at them from the leagues that they are playing in, that's fine. But there is a league here. There are leagues in South Australia as well. And surely there must be one or two players kicking around in these leagues that would deserve to be looked at. And I think that is a weakness that we have if we are just concentrating on NTC emerging programs and players who played in the A-League, because form runs hot and cold, and there are some players in the NPLW at the moment that are really, really shining and should be looked at. But the ones that we've got in there from the West, I think they're merited well and truly. And it'd be interesting to see how the final squad falls out.
Yeah, it's a good point that you make around that as well. It's the same kind of thing, same kind of problem that you have with the capital football, is that you have a Canberra United team that is built primarily around young Canberra players who obviously get the lion's share of the minutes in the team, but then who go off and play for Sydney Uni or go and play for Spirit or
same for Football Vic, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you have all these players in New South Wales, and obviously if the plan is probably the wrong word, but the eventuality is that New South Wales becomes the default second tier women's competition, then as you say, it shows that there's a slight or a weakness or an unwillingness to broaden our somewhat myopic views of what talented footballers are out there, which is, as you say, only to the detriment of the squads going forward.
Queensland's a different example, right, as well, Madge, because if you look at the history of the Matildas, how strong has Queensland been in generating Matildas? So,
well, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking it's also an issue of equity. So there's a certain privilege or a hell of a lot of, or just a commitment to almost an extreme to dedicate for those players who can do it, who decide that they're going to pack up their lives from WA and move to New South Wales. That's something that isn't an option for everyone. So we're really cutting ourselves off from a lot of potential talent out there. And it's a huge issue for Australia in general. I think I was having a conversation about we're so similar to the United States in our geographical issues, but then the United States has a bit of a leveler there in their college system and a Title IX that really provides pathways. Still, there's still equity issues there, no doubt, but in Australia, it's without the supports there to have a vibrant and diverse second tier, third tier of football nurseries all around the country. We've got to be missing out on fantastic talent just because that they can't make those moves, they can't make those jumps, and they can't commit to the same extent that those people who can do it are able to.
Yeah, it's a point that you make around like the geographical diversity of the United States. It's like if we had Darwin have a population of 5 million people, I'm sure, or Alice Springs have a population of several million people as well, I'm sure that we would have less of an issue. But as you say, it's just that there is that tyranny of distance. And I mean, maybe it is that we just need to invest more infrastructure into watching these players on a more regular basis, or that we're getting more, for example, more NTC or more representative tournaments for young players. But I think, as you say, I think something has to be done to kind of level that playing field and see that there's more players out there, rather than just the ones that are playing at Blacktown. As much as we love Blacktown, Eric, please don't come for me after.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't jumped into the pod and started throwing chat messages at us. All that said, I still think as we all would think, congratulations to the players who have been selected for that training camp. And if I were a player, I would want to go where I've got the best opportunity to hone my craft. And if at the moment, I mean, all of the logistics aside, if the best place to do that is in New South Wales at the moment, then so be it. But we don't need to address it individually as you and I, but I'm hopeful that people are considering what needs to be done in the individual states and territories to give them a good enough go to go forward. But there is representation from, I think, far and wide. So that's really good to see. It's just that currently, I mean, you see a player like Alana Murphy, I think, for example, who played for Melbourne Victory. She's a Victorian to the very best of my knowledge. I'm not trying to deliberately steal her or anything, but she's gone up to play for Blacktown, I think, in this case as well. So we are generating some players out of Victoria, but when they want to go, and you don't want them to play in a league that's not the standard that they need to play in. Although I think NPL Vic is a good standard. So yeah, but maybe it's more about who they're playing with to play together with their potential teammates. And then it gives them more time to really get together with the style of play as well, to be there together. Because when you have a camp's a couple of days, you might have a couple of camps a year. Then that means, if you count it all up, is it 2-3 weeks of total time together? If they're playing NPLW together, then you've got that extra benefit of them being able to see and work. I mean, you can watch that kind of vision. You might be able to get video and see, see how they did that, but that doesn't replace them playing together.
Also, anyway, a big shout out to Katie Gooden, who has been selected from DePaul University, formerly of Sussex, I believe. So as you say, we are casting the net far and wide. We have a player who didn't actually play their junior football in Australia, which is interesting.
Cool. I think Eric has very kindly left us some show notes in there as well. So in other news, the 2022 AFF Championship draw has been released. At the moment, there's nothing official about the Young Matildas taking part, but it is kind of expected that they would, and the tournament will be held in the Philippines from the 4th of July to the 17th of July. In other news, and I don't want to touch on it too much because I've got nothing to do with it. It's led by more important people than me, but Sports Integrity Australia, the independent complaints handling process, released an update. So obviously that whole thing has been open for a little while, taking submissions. My understanding was that there were 27 submissions. Of the 27, 2 of them have been proceeded to the investigation phase, and the remaining 25 submissions were deemed out of scope from ICHP, which doesn't mean that they weren't issues in themselves of some which way or another, but they're outside the scope of what Sports Integrity Australia is reviewing. Hopefully anything that comes out of that is implemented swiftly, but we will be told. We won't be involved, we'll just be told. Matildas, we have updated our signings around the world page because we've got more Matildas who've signed some contracts, and we've been a bit remiss in doing that. But talking about signings, Perth Glory are getting busy this week, or last week I think it was, and they've got, I can't remember the number of players, but so far they're already grooving along.
Yeah, most of them are, well, all of them are re-signings. So the squad is is not going to look hugely different to last season's, I don't think. There will obviously be one or two changes, but 15 have been signed up already. Some were on 2-year contracts from last year, so no surprises there. And the announcement of a number of re-signings this week by Alex, and I'm sure that there will be more as we go through the next few weeks. He very much would have been in the running for the Coach of the Year for the A-League, for the awards last week. Like I said, I think the squad itself is going to be very similar. Whether the most glorious player, as they call them, will be back, the Danish player, whether she will come back, but Sierra Hinson has come back. She's the American international or junior international. Mealyth Jens, name just escaped me for a moment there. Whether she re-signs or not, if she doesn't, then that's going to be a big hole for them to fill. But knowing Alex, he's got option B, C, D, E, and F up his sleeve, ready to go.
Quick question: has Alex Apakis gone back to the East Coast, or has he stuck around on the West Coast? He was
at Sydney Uni versus Manly only the other week, having a good yarn with myself, Eric, and Lockie.
Yeah, so I think he will be coming back to Perth in the not too distant future. It's either renting a property, I think, here in Perth. And when I spoke to him, it's a good 6 weeks or so ago, but yeah, he was at that point the interim coach for the academy team for the men. But that was on the understanding it was only for a 2-week period, 3-week period, something like that. But yeah, he'll be back, but just quite when that will be, I'm not sure.
Cool. All right. Thank you for that.
You've got to be happy to with the amount of players that you're getting back as well, with Western United coming in. So
good
might
point.
see a little bit of movement this season as well, next season.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that new team is going to offer up some opportunities from players from all over the country who may have just been on the fringes of some of their native teams. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out.
Their brand has probably taken a boost just recently as well. I mean, people think about Western United as, whatever. Or maybe they don't think that. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be belligerent or anything, but now that they've just won men's championship, that kind of puts them in a good stead, and some of the women players might be thinking maybe that's a good space to go. So good timing for them to do that, and good luck to Western United as well. Really conscious of such a great time, or I had such a great time talking to Kitch, that it means that we'll rush through some of the results, but the results we'll put in our show notes for everyone to see afterwards. Just a couple more awards, I suppose. Sam Kerr picking up every award that she walks past and touches. She's like, is it the Midas touch? Everything she touches turns to gold.
Yes,
so player of the season in the FAWSL, and goal of the season in the FAWSL as well. I did want to, and maybe we'll have to hold this over for another week, but do a bit of a review of how the Australians fared in the WSL as well. So obviously that's been over for a couple of weeks. In Europe, the Scottish Cup final was held between Celtic and Glasgow City. We saw Celtic win 3-2. I haven't seen any highlights yet, but hopefully we'll see that. Jacynta Galabadaarachchi played 85 minutes and set up Celtic's first goal. As we know, Aoife Colvill, who was on the podcast not that long ago, is injured, so she's not taking part. But the game did go to extra time, and Eric will show some love his way. Irish international Izzy Atkinson scored the winner for Celtic in the 113th minute.
Right, it was a great goal as well too. Got played through midfield, one-on-one through the keeper's legs. Beautiful.
Very nice. Football does not exist without Irish internationals.
No. If there's one thing the Irish know, it's getting their names out there, for want of a word.
Congratulations in France to Lyon and Ellie Carpenter. They won their final match of the season 1-0 over PSG. Ellie obviously injured, but has had her surgery and hopefully is well on the way to recovering now. They won that, and I think, very successful, always good to see. Montpellier had a 5-2 win over Izzy, and Mary Fowler came on in the 67th minute and she scored. The thing with Mary Fowler is she's not always a starter, but she's an absolute super sub, because how many times does she come on and she scores?
She plays a very, as you say, she plays a very different role in that team as well, because she plays up front as one of the, number 9s, which is obviously very different to how she plays for the Matildas. But like, as you were saying earlier, I think her going to Montpellier, Montpellier, lovely part of the world, but B, like she's having to play a role and she's having to win her spot, which I think is at her age hugely important, because it shows you, what hard work gives you. Is obviously a starter. You're not going to be a starter every week. You got to work for it.
Yep. I don't feel like I can do Nordic football justice in the way that Stefan does, but Dale, I don't know if you wanted to give it a go and try and be as your best Stefan as possible and whip through the results.
I think, as you're saying, just because we're short on time, I'll only go through the biggest result of the weekend from the Nordic Wrap, which was Tegan Micah and Charlie Grant winning the Svenska Cupen, the Swedish Cup, which does look a lot like a funeral urn, but look, who am I to judge? They had a 2-1 win over BK Häcken, I believe. And Tegan
How many European Cups have Australians won? I think we've grabbed a good... It's got to be a majority of them. It feels like it.
Yeah, I think you might be right, because I have a feeling that even I have a feeling Chids might have been there when Atleti won the Spanish Cup, but I could be wrong. But I will do my homework and I'll bring that information to you hot off the press next week. But
actually,
yeah,
Italian one is one we haven't had.
Yeah, I was thinking that unless there was someone like Joey Peters or
Pep won. Pep won. Yes. We'll classify that.
Yeah,
Joe Montemuro.
He did win the Italian Cup. That is true. But yes, as I said, Swedish Women's Cup winners. So another bit of silverware to add to the Matildas collection. Hopefully we can add another bright, shiny, spirally thing next year when the World Cup runs around.
Other good news, I think, is that Courtney Nevin scored a goal, which is always lovely for me to see. And if I whiz through some of the other bits and pieces, just trying to have a quick look. Ignore me, Stefan, please. I'm sorry. It just means that you have to come back next time. Susan Fongsongkham was awarded player of the match in their win 1-0 against Afterelding.
Very good.
Yeah, really sorry about that. I'm sorry. All right. And in the NWSL, Chelsea Dorber is still unused as a sub, but she was on the team sheet. Emily Van Egmond played a full game in their loss against OL Reign. And I think that was San Diego's, I was going to say their first loss, but I think it's their second loss. And then there's a final match tomorrow of the round. So it's Kansas City against Racine Louisville with Alex Chidiac. So we'll see how that one goes as well. Any big highlights in state football?
I think the only one that I would like to talk about, Beth Gordon. If you get a chance to see Beth Gordon's goal for Macarthur against Manly this weekend, please do. It was very, very good. And the commentator thoroughly enjoyed it.
Hopefully we'll get a little vid, a link to a vid, or you can see it in the match of the round or the wrap.
We might make something happen.
I guess the highlight from Queensland, I'll probably go to the MPLW game between South United and Capalaba. Capalaba were able to exact revenge against South after they knocked them out of the Kappa Cup last week. They came back and won 2-1. And just to make Eric and Dale happy, guess who scored the winner? Talitha Kramer. With a rising header from a free kick. It was actually a really tidy header to win the game there for Capalaba. Oh, and also I'm also going to note Lions FC 3-2 to QAS. Lions had their 3 goals in the first 10 minutes, and then QAS picked up another couple. So it was a bit of a weird game, but yeah.
I'll follow that one on with a round wrap for WA. 7-0 win to Perth Red Star against Curtin. All 7 goals in the first half. Nothing in the second.
Not all by one player. Hopefully there was some sharing involved.
There was sharing some of the love around. Yes. Other noteworthy ones. The second place team, Fremantle. They won. They continue to go behind and then win with a flurry of goals in the last 10 minutes or something like that. Perth Soccer Club, they lost for the second time this season to the NTC. They must hate playing them. And in the other game, Murdoch Uni, Melville, lost at home to Balcatta. But the interesting thing about that was that Sadie Lawrence from Perth Glory made her first appearance of the season in that game. So she's back from a slight rest. So hopefully she will be able to kickstart their season.
I'm not sure how to pick a game of the round from the NPL Vic competition, just having a look at the results there, because there was a bottom of the table game and there was some mid-table games, but we'll post all the results in the show notes. Looking really good for Heidelberg United at the moment, who've been a strong club generally, but they've not been, in my experience, at the top. It's been more around Bulleen and South Melbourne, who have really flipped and gone down the bottom. So Heidelberg United doing really quite well. On to Queens of the Week. Eric is the only person who's done any homework, so we'll give Eric a good rap and say Hills United have remained undefeated through the first half of the Football New South Wales League One women's regular season, 14 wins and 1 draw. A special shout out to their goalkeeper, Sarah Easthope, for keeping 8 clean sheets. So good on you, Sarah, for being Eric's Queen of the Week. That's someone different. How about you, Neil? Do you have a Queen of the Week?
Well, I'll follow on with that then. In that vein, it will be Perth Red Star, 8 wins from 8, and they haven't scored less than 3 goals all season. They're very, very strong at the moment, and some of the football they played, all 7 goals, if you added up the total distance from which they were scored, comes to less than 50 metres. They were nearly all 6-yard boxes, and they were just beautiful passing movements. So playing some really good stuff. So yeah, Perth Red Star for me.
Very good. Dale, you ready?
Yeah, I will give my Queen of the Week to Abby Lemon, who is the daughter of
nice.
Kelly Lemon, friend of the show and friend of the B90 team. Kelly is one of our lovely photographers with KLZ, and Abby has been selected in the Young Matildas, formerly of, I believe, Levante and futsal fame. So yeah, big ups to her. She's been having a pretty good season with Blacktown Spartans. Her and the 1,400 other Young Matildas that are playing there. The only downside is that when they go away, Blacktown Spartans have like no players. So that's going to be interesting to see how their schedule works out for the rest of the season.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Madge, take over while I'm laughing.
Yeah, well, I mean, my Queen of the Week is someone we've already talked a lot about this pod, is Mary Fowler. She came in 10th on ESPN's top 20 or whatever players under the age of 20. So getting some really good recognition from the wider international football community, and deservedly so. She's an absolute star.
Very good. My Queen of the Week, just to finish up, Courtney Nevin. I think she's done a great job. She's only just recently headed over, I feel it's recently anyway, to play internationally, and scoring a goal, I think, is a lovely way to keep the passion going and make you feel like you're solidifying that spot in the team as well. Really keen and exciting to see Kyra Cooney cross hopefully soon on the team sheet and ready to play. So yeah, Queens of the Week from all of us. Alrighty, well, thank you everyone for listening in to us. Thank you to all of our co-hosts for joining us tonight and talking the good game of football. Thanks very much to Kitch. It was absolutely brilliant chatting to you, and thank you so much for being part of the podcast and for being part of women's football history, and also contributing to the game generally without gender, because you're out there coaching men's football as well. All right, thank you everyone. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.